Hey, guess what, everybody? Go listen to the Break It Down show.
This is Joe Davis, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
Terrific.
Heck yeah.
This morning on the Break It Down Show, and I mean morning because it's 6 a.m. where we are, and it's 9 where you are, Joe?
Yep, 9 a.m. here in Michigan.
It's morning, and we have with us the pleasure of the company of Joe Davis, Dodgers announcer. And, we've really enjoyed in the spring training season how the guys have kind of been giving you a hard time because it's your first season with the Dodgers, huh?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a rookie in the clubhouse a little bit.
Yeah.
Light hazing that they're putting me through, but as I'm sure you guys can tell watching on TV and feel when you're watching and listening, it's all in good fun, and those guys have gone out of their way to make me feel comfortable. And I think this is just kind of part of that, kind of part of making me feel like one of the guys and part of the team.
You are doing fantastic. The banter you guys have is going to be great to listen to throughout the course of the season. Obviously, you know that Nomar is very entertaining and engaging, and Oral, to me, I think Oral is the best color guy out there. The things he says, I don't hear anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I was listening back. I try to go back. It's tough in a baseball season to go back and review every game just because there's so many. But when I got back from spring training, I went back and flipped down our last game, and I take notes and things like that, and on things to work on for myself. And I just shot him a text while I was listening and said, "Man, you are so good."
Oh, man,
it's
no
like
kidding.
you're totally right. There may not be anybody out there better than him at that position.
I also think that, it's one thing to have the intimate knowledge of baseball that he has, because certainly he's unmatched when it comes to that. But, it doesn't always translate. And with him, he's just got an ability to hand it to us that's, casual enough because it's coming from it's coming in a baseball setting. We want it casual. But it's technical enough that he's growing everybody.
Yeah, where you're learning something. So it's that fine line where, everybody wants an informed analyst that they're going to learn something from. But,
right.
They also don't want to be like, well, what in the world is this guy talking about? So you don't want to be talked down to, but you don't want everything to go over your head. And at the same time, that sweet spot needs to be delivered in a listenable way, in an enjoyable way, and over the course of a 162-game baseball season in a way that you want to keep coming back to listen to it every night. So it's really remarkable that he's found the sweet spot in all those categories, in my opinion.
Hey, Pete, I got Joe to explain that way in that way.
That's quite a compliment. Thank you.
Hey, but it goes beyond that. When I was listening the other day, and I'm sure you'll remember this moment, Oral was talking about how when a pitcher falls down off of the mound when he pitches, that front leg takes 6 times his weight over and over and over again, 100 times a game, and that over the course of a career, you'll notice that a pitcher's lead leg is 2 to 3 inches larger than the other, and that is fantastic color analysis, right? But then there's Joe. Joe comes in and says, "Is that still true for you?" And Oral says, it absolutely is. And that right there, that interplay, man, that is so good.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that you guys are enjoying that. And that's the kind of stuff, that if you were to go out and have a beer with Oral and I, or sit down and watch a game on the side with Oral and I, that's hopefully exactly what it'd feel like. And that's what we want. The people at home, when they tune us in, to feel like they're just kind of sitting there hanging out with us, eavesdropping in on our conversation. And I'm glad to know that at least for you guys, that's translating over the first week of games.
Yeah, sitting in on over a beer type of conversation that also happens to be informative and fascinating.
Yeah, right. Because it's the conversation by the bar with the guy that won the 1988 Cy Young and pitched for 20 years in the majors.
There is that. Hey, how about you? Where did you come from? Tell us how you got to the Dodgers.
Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan, and I grew up knowing it's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a play-by-play guy. I'm not sure what I would do if I wasn't doing this.
Where in Michigan?
In the Lansing area.
All right. So you're growing up and you want to be a play-by-play guy. That's a very specific passion for a young man.
Yeah.
So what did you listen to? What informed your craft?
The first guy that I can remember like paying close attention to and pretending I was Gary Thorne.
Oh, no kidding.
NHL on ESPN.
Sure. Yeah.
So, growing up in Michigan, hockey was all around me. Now, hockey was not all around me in the degree that some people that have never been to Michigan think it is, where I get some people asking, like, so, do you ice fish year-round? And I've never ice fished in my life, and summers are beautiful, but that's neither here nor there. So I'd listened to Gary Thorne when I was, 7, 8 years old. Loved his voice and loved listening to the Stanley Cup playoff games and everything with him. That was probably the first time that I thought to myself, man, this is like a thing that you can do and get paid to do. This can be your job. This is what Gary Thorne does for a living. I grew up a big Cubs fan, so that would have been the transition from Harry Carey to Chip Carey. And so I listened to a lot of Chip Carey on WGN, when I was in junior high. Len Casper took over that job when I was in high school and has become a really great mentor for me. So he's somebody I listen to. Pat Hughes, the Cubs radio guy.
Oh, I love Pat Hughes.
He's as good as anybody. And then for me, the one that, the guy that in my generation has always been calling the biggest games, so the Super Bowl and the World Series and you name it, has been Joe Buck. And so Joe Buck was probably number one for me and the guy that I listened to closely and admired the style of. And I don't think that anybody right now nationally does what he does as far as captioning and capturing moments. And so that's kind of how the guys that I took stuff from as I grew up knowing that it's what I wanted to do. And then to finish off your question of how I got to the Dodgers, from there I went and 3.5 years of college in Wisconsin. I played football at Beloit College, a Division III school. The recruiting pitch from the head coach was that I could announce the basketball games right away. Went there and played football and announced the basketball games and did everything I could outside of the classroom to set myself up to take a good position right out of college. And straight out of college, I got hired to do the radio games for the Tampa Bay Rays AA affiliate, the Montgomery Biscuits. So that's when I knew I had made it, guys.
Yes.
I was looking for a team whose colors were butter and blue.
Wow.
So, I did 3 years there, and then towards the beginning of my third year, signed on with ESPN, did 2 years at ESPN, signed with Fox after that. I'm in my second year with Fox now, and going into my first year with the Dodgers now.
That is a tale and a half. Because actually, when I went through college, I wanted to be like you. I just didn't do a very good job of it. But I did have a lot of fun though. But so let me back up to some of your influences. So Pat Hughes, I loved Pat Hughes and how he and Ron Santo worked together.
Oh, the best.
Especially like when Ron Santo would talk about. So Ron Santo had 3 toupees, John, right? And the third one was the gamer.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It was like for cutting the lawn. And Pat would have just the perfect thing to say, where he would just jump in and say something and be hilarious. Just the funniest
you know what you got to get, Pete, is Pat Hughes does a full series. Maybe you've seen or heard some of these, but he has a full series of broadcasting legends CDs that he's put out. The greatest calls from all the great announcers. And he did one for Ron Santo. And it's basically 20 tracks of their funniest moments together. Oh. And it's just awesome. One of them is in regards to that toupee, the time that it got lit on fire by the overhead heater at Shea Stadium. And Ron Santo hated Shea Stadium, hated the Mets going back to 1969 with the Black Cat incident. So he just hated everything about the Mets. And he's in the booth standing up during the national anthem, and Pat Hughes said he could smell something burning, and he looked over, and the toupee was on fire. So he reached out, grabbed a cup of water on the table, and dumped it over Ron's head, and Ron's saying, "What'd you do that for?"
Yeah.
It was to put out the fire. And then the final piece of that story that Ron Santo always thought was so funny, the starting pitcher for the Mets that night, Al Leiter.
Come on.
They were great on those plays, and I'm going to get the players wrong, so I'm just going to make them up as best I can. But I think Randy Wolf was facing Marlon Byrd, and Pat Hughes says, "Animal fight."
Yeah.
And just the simple stuff like that. How about Ernie Harwell? Did he was he done by the time that you really started paying attention, or?
Yeah, so that's the question, that the knee-jerk question that I get from people when they hear about my background and that I grew up in Michigan. I think partly because I was a Cubs fan, and partly because he kind of was finishing up as I was getting old enough to appreciate it. I really don't remember. I don't have vivid memories of listening to him and taking things from listening to him.
The legacy you're stepping into, you're doing the road games, 50 road games this year. Is that right for the Dodgers?
Right. Yeah. It'll be somewhere in that range around 50.
Wait, before we get to the road games you're going to do, I just want to say this: I hate Joe Buck.
Oh, man. I was trying to let it
I
go.
made a face when you said Joe Buck. I went, oh, God.
Joe Buck has a unique ability to make both teams mad.
Everybody hate you.
Yeah.
That's true. And the thing is, I hate Joe Buck because I'm a Giants fan and he hates the Giants. But you can go to whatever team the Giants are playing, and it doesn't have to be the Cardinals. It could be the Royals or whatever. And guys will go, oh, God, I hate Joe Buck. He just hates our team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he hates all 30 teams, but he hates yours the most.
That's right.
And here's the thing. So we have our Fox Major League Baseball seminar each winter where we go. I'll get together and have meetings and talk about the year and philosophies and things like that. And that's one of the big conversations that is always typically led by Joe. That is, in baseball, we've got our local team announcers that we listen to every day, and we're used to hearing them talk about our guys every single day, usually in fairly positive light. And then these national guys come in on the weekend, and it's like,
yep.
Why aren't they talking about our guys more? Why is there a negative slant on this? And that's exacerbated for him because he's doing the biggest games when the emotions are running, at their high points. And so it's just kind of natural for fans, for whatever reason, to direct that dislike at the guy in the booth, even though he could not care less who wins the game.
Well, I think just because we're in the business together, I can recognize that, and I can see that it's really the mark of true impartiality when everybody hates you.
Yeah, right.
But there is something to be said that people don't hate Vin, and Vin did all those games.
Yeah,
I guess there is something to that.
I wonder how much that is the age we live in now versus the age that Vin was calling the World Series.
Sure.
On television into the late 80s when Twitter wasn't around. And, just using Twitter as an example, it's such a negative medium where a lot of that hate of Joe Buck manifests itself. I don't know. I mean, part of it too very well could be how just generally lovable and likable and easy to listen to Vin is.
Yep.
He's got that charm about him. But I think that part of it too is just the difference in generations with the way that we're able to have access to anybody we want to let them know how much we think they suck in this age. And that wasn't the case in the 80s and the 70s and the 50s or whatever generation or whatever announcer it may have been before this internet age that we're in now.
And let's say you hated Vin Scully in the 60s. Over time, he's going to grow on you. He's going to get, he's going to get grandfatherly on you. And by the time you figure out what Twitter is, when you've had Vin in your ear for 35 years, you can't hate that guy anymore. I mean, let's face it. I have to, as a Giants fan, I have to say these words. I hate Joe Buck.
I hate him.
But I ran into Joe Buck at pretty much in front of Momo's, which is right across the street from AT&T.
Yeah.
And, he was just shaking hands and kissing babies.
Right.
So, I had to look at that and go, well, there's Joe Buck. You can't hate that guy. He's kissing babies.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? And he is. That's what I tell people when I hear that they, when they hear they don't like Joe, they think that he hates their team or he's pretentious or whatever the things are that get thrown out there.
Yeah.
He's just a normal dude that, and for me, a young guy who grew up wanting to be him, he could not have been, when we met, any nicer and any more helpful. And honestly, when I was going through the whole thing, when the negotiations with the Dodgers and trying to figure out a way to make it work with Fox at the same time, and was stressed as hell, wasn't sleeping at all, trying to figure out a way to make all the negotiations work and make all sides happy. There's a conversation I had with Joe. He took 20, 30 minutes out of his day to talk with me and just kind of talk everything through. So there's a specific example of him being, while he might be the guy we hear on TV hating our teams, he's a normal person and he's a good dude, the kind of guy that you just want to hang out and have a beer with.
Man, I'm glad that we get to say that in our show, because it is easy to put him in a box and say what a dick he is, but that's not true. That's just that's not how he is, and I like to hear that he's a guy like that. He deserves some of those stories, because the other stories are way more prevalent. And so, thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, I want to ask, so when you get that phone call, and you're like, hey, the Dodgers are going to send over the offer sheet and email here in a few minutes, you put the phone down, and then it sinks in. Tell me what happens next.
Yeah, so when Vin called, is that the story you're talking about?
Oh,
Yes.
This gets better.
Apparently, yes.
Actually, Vin called.
Yeah, wait, ask the question again. I want to make sure I answer
Well,
it.
the question I have is I'm trying to set the frame of you just accepted the job with the Dodgers, and you were going to work alongside with Vin Scully, and you're 27 years old.
And be in that fraternity.
Yeah, you're in the chain between you and Red Barber goes back to 1939 with the Dodgers. 1939. So you get that phone call.
You got 1 degree of separation in Vin Scully between you and Red Barber.
Right, and Red Barber basically invented the job. I mean, there's guys who did it early, like Grantland Rice and those guys, but Red Barber is the giant from that era, and he's absolutely one of the giants in your guys' profession. So you're about to sit in the same chair that Red Barber sat in.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that exact thing, that it pretty much, I mean, if you're going to draw the straightest line, it is 1 degree of separation between Red Barber and I. And there've obviously been a lot of great, talented voices alongside Vin, and on the radio side right now with Charlie Steiner and Rick Monday, and so on, with the partners he's had over the years. But yeah, that's mind blowing to me to think about who he followed, and now the chance that I get to have to sit in that chair for those 50 road games this year, and hopefully beyond that for a really long time. It's something more than I can even put words to and wrap my mind around. So what I do is just try not to really think about that, because I think if you think too much about that and the legacy of that booth and how special that chair is, you acknowledge it, you respect it, you enjoy it, and appreciate it. But I don't think that in my position I linger on it much, because I don't know that does me any good when I'm going to go on and perform. If I'm stuck there thinking about, what that chair represents, if that makes sense.
You still got a job to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The job from 7 to 10 at night when we're calling those games isn't made different by the history of that booth. For those 3 hours. Now, big picture, of course, to me, that's what made this position so special, largely, is the legacy of the booth. But, what I have to do when I go on is just do the job the way I know how to do it, and hopefully the rest kind of takes care of itself. But, I wouldn't want to get too caught up in worrying about trying to hold up my end of the bargain on being somebody who's stepping into that chair that has been occupied for so long by so many legends.
Well said.
If you like the show,
And you know you do.
send us some pictures of your boobies.
Don't do that. Support the show.
There are 3 ways you can support us.
Number 1, go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And leave a 5-star rating and review.
It helps with the show metrics and helps us get better placement. Number 2,
Visit our website.
www.breakitdownshow.com.
We've got an Amazon and an eBay link.
Same Amazon, same eBay, you know and love, but they give us a little kickback when you get to their site from ours. And number 3, leave comments about the shows that you like. We want to know what you think, how you feel.
Tell us how to make the show better. We greatly appreciate it.
Now back to the show.
We like boobies.
I'm a lifelong Giants fan, and Pete and I were in a Taco Bell with our kids. I heard a voice. We're eating our tacos, and I heard a voice off in the distance that I knew I recognized. And then the cashier said, "Can I get a name for your order?" And he said, "Dwayne." And I went, "That's Kype." So I had to get up and say,
That's
hey,
great.
I'm a big fan. And he was just as cordial and as welcoming as could be. My son's a baseball player, so he talked shop with us for a moment while we were waiting for his burrito to show up. Cool. And he was great. And I said, now listen, I know you get pitched all the time, but Kai, we have a podcast, and we'd love to have you on it. And I really want to make everything convenient. I'll come to you and all that stuff. And he said, okay, absolutely, I'll do it. And we went, really? Okay, great. And we were all fired up. I mean, high-fiving each other in front of him and everything. And he said, yeah, absolutely. And he gave me the name of the media person. He said, she's in charge of my calendar, so you got to go through her. But let her know we met, and we'll do it. We'll get it done. And at the time, I think it was January.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he said, let's knock it out before spring training, though. And I said, okay, that's fine. Nothing. Radio silence from the media person at the Giants. Well, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to run into him at some point, and we're going to talk about it, whatever. And then we get an opportunity to have DJ Severe on our show, and he's the stadium DJ for the Dodgers.
The most listened to DJ in the universe.
In the universe. And he's great. We hit it off immediately, and I'm, just as Pete has a broadcasting past, I have a DJ past. So he and I got on, immediately, and we were welcomed with open arms by the Dodgers organization. They said, come on down, guys. We're going to hang press passes on you. Yeah. We asked if we could do the show, record the show from Severe's perch there at Dodger Stadium well before a game started, so we weren't going to be in the way. And they said, oh, absolutely. Come on down, hang out in the perch, enjoy the view, take a look at the stadium. You guys have whatever access you need. Come really early. I mean, I parked practically 50 feet from the front gate.
Yeah.
And they said, whatever you need to capture the best. So, and by the way, stay for the game.
Yeah.
And we were getting down toward the end of the season, and it was really exciting. So, of course, after that experience, we tweeted, hey, Giants, what's going on? Well, how is it that I get so much love from the Dodgers? What are you doing? And the Giants tweeted back a little vignette from The Godfather, and the caption, you're breaking our heart.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Sounds like a pretty one-sided relationship there, John.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, and so here I am, lifelong Giants fan, orange and black, but I had to say it. Go Dodgers.
Yeah, man. Go Dodgers. It's true. It's hard, though. The media thing is tough. The Dodgers, well, you guys, by my count, you have about 15 people announcing games in any given game for the Dodgers. I mean, it's a lot. They put a lot of time and effort into that stuff.
Yeah, but you got the guy who, within the Dodgers organization, you have to service the Spanish language community.
Yep, that's right.
You have to serve. I'm sure there's an Armenian guy and a Greek guy. Who else you guys got over there?
Let's see. So you've got the Spanish radio booth. You've got the Dodger radio booth. You've got the Vin.
Right.
Our road booth, which is typically a 3-man booth. Alana Rizzo on the field for us. Alana hosts pregame and postgame stuff a lot of times. Back in studio, John Hartung, and then all the rotating panel of analysts that we have back there as well. That includes Jerry Hairston Jr. and Ned Coletti, and the list. In fact, we have, I don't know where I put it, but we have our 2016 Dodgers yearbook, where in the back they have the full front office and the sales staff and so on, everybody that works for the team. They also have a page of headshots with the broadcast crew, and it's full half page of these little headshots of people that are on the air for the Dodgers.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, and Ms. Rizzo, she does great. She's out there. She's finding out things like the other day when we guys were playing the Reds. And who was it? Who was bending over in the batter's box?
Joey Votto.
Joey Votto. Yeah, he would just bend over at the waist, and just what is he doing? Like he was in the batter's box between pitches, bent over, contemplating something. Yeah. And so it was like the big puzzle was, what's she doing? And go ahead. I don't want to talk for you. What was he doing?
He was. He told A.J. Ellis that he was thinking. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was something. I mean, I know that he's a bit of a different character, and this was just another thing that he was trying. Where if you didn't see it, it'd be easy to find now. It's kind of blown up on the internet. So he's bent over between each pitch. He was bending over at the waist, putting his hands on his knees, and leaning the bat basically up against his midsection, and just putting his head down and staying there for 5 or 10 seconds before picking the bat back up and getting ready for the next pitch. But he was down there thinking.
What a character. You know, sometimes you got to get the blood flowing to the thinking cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that might have been what that was.
Hey, when you take your notes and you go back over what you see in here, can you kind of dig into that? What do you see? What do you go, dang it, Joe? You know, what are those moments? Or when do you high five yourself and say that was smooth? What kind of things do reflect back at you?
It's usually little things, that I can adjust the next time I go on, and hopefully if I were to go back and watch that ensuing broadcast, I wouldn't write the same thing down, whether it be a word that I'm using too frequently or, for example, my first Dodger game, when I went back and watched that, I thought I was talking a touch too fast, and I don't think anybody would have noticed that, but I noticed it, and I think part of it was I knew I was in a 3-man booth, and my first game wanted to get out of Orlin Nomar's way, so subconsciously I was probably speeding up a little bit. So the next time I went on, I just consciously made an effort to talk a little bit slower. And again, if you put the tapes next to each other and listen to game 1 versus game 2, you might not even notice, unless I were to tell you to look for it. The way I describe a ball in play, the way that I'm teeing guys up, the way that I'm telling stories, just little things that I jot notes down on. And again, it's hard in a baseball season because there's so many games, but try to go back as frequently as I can. And during a football season, it's a lot easier where it's a game a week, and I every time will go back and watch that game. And the few notes that I'll take down the full page of notes or whatever, critiquing myself, and I'll try to turn that into like 3 bullet points to focus on for the next game. And I'll write those down, and I'll bring that into the booth with me the next week and hopefully make those adjustments.
One of the things that we really enjoy about the show that I enjoyed just now was really hearing the details of your craft, because people don't realize that, like anything else, it is a craft. You have to cultivate it. You have to carve away at it. Yeah. And to hear that you go back and reflect on certain things that are of such detail, like the cadence and the speed of your delivery, and the way that you describe a ball in play. Because as listeners, we can, and we should, be able to take those things completely for granted as just a part of the baseball experience.
Yeah.
But it's no different than the guy who's on the field, who's doing, whatever his job is on the field. It just looks like he's taking ground balls, but there's a craft, and there's a craft to every single part of it.
Yeah, and I think with any job, but in the case of this one, and with the guys on the field, like you mentioned, what we see as fans at home is from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, that 3-hour window. And there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
in the case of the ball players, there's a lot more to it than there is with us. But it's an easy comparison to make on the preparation that goes into getting ready to play a game, and the preparation that goes into getting ready to do a broadcast, and the self-evaluation that goes into both. There's so much, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time that everybody else sees you doing the job, that goes into you doing that job for the few hours that the public sees.
I don't know what made me think of this. Do you remember the Dennis Miller experiment on Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
A little bit.
And Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Not enough to have a real strong opinion about it. I think that what I like about it is that it was an example of executives taking chances and trying to do something different, and it might have fallen flat and not worked, but at least they weren't relying on just the way it's been done. I think that's a bad way to go about things, is have a philosophy of do it one way because that's how it's always been done. I don't think that you accomplish much if you're not willing to take chances. So, I know it didn't work, but maybe they learned something from it, and they deserve credit for taking a chance in order to do it.
Sometimes those chances pay off wonderfully, though. Like Al Michaels wasn't trained to really do a hockey game. And, had to get all those Russian names right. And I'm not exaggerating when he says, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes. I mean, I feel a rush of excitement, like a physical, emotional response when I hear and watch that highlight.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you said it that way, because I loved it for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Never mind that it fell flat, and it did fall flat. I liked that they really swung for the fence on that one, and I loved every once in a while the just absolutely obscure reference that he would throw out. It was like, that's like teaching Idi Amin ballroom dancing. And you'd be like, there's something you never hear on Monday Night Football.
Right.
But he would throw those things out, and I'm glad that if somebody needed to get doused and extinguished, he was willing to get out there and do it. And like you said, the executives were willing to take a chance. It was fun for a little while. But you live in Michigan, and you're doing the road games for the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Are you moving to L.A. anytime soon?
Yeah, so I think the plan right now is with it just being road games this year to meet the team wherever they go. And when we travel from city to city, I'll fly in the team charter then. When there's multiple legs to a road trip, for example, this weekend, I'm going to fly. This is a little different this weekend. I'm going to fly to Los Angeles tomorrow morning. I'll do the final game of the Freeway Series tomorrow night, and then bus with the team to San Diego Sunday, do the games down there, fly with the team from San Diego to San Francisco. But when the team flies back home to LA after the game in San Francisco next Sunday, I'll get on a plane and fly back home to Michigan. So that'll be for 2016, but the plan is to relocate out there in 2017, and it just gives us time to get our house sold here in Michigan in 2016 and not have the stress of having to hurry out there across the country and find a place to live and do that all under the gun. This gives us a little bit of flexibility.
Do you like Los Angeles?
I do. As Michigan people, it's different.
Yep.
It's a totally different thing, but every time it snows here in Michigan, and knock on wood, I think we're done for the winter, but every time it snows and every time the weather's horrible, my wife and I look at each other like, we're a little more ready today to move out there. So especially excited about the weather.
I've lived in California most of my life, and there's so many Michiganders out here who come out here and go, yeah, this place is cool.
Yeah.
So, I think we have a sensibility that you're going to walk right into and love, and that your family's going to love. Like you said, the weather is irresistible. So you're also walking into the Dodger organization and the atmosphere that exists around that. And I think that's going to be a good time for you, too.
Yeah. They, just with the 3 consecutive division titles on the field, that's clear why it's a special time to be with the team, top farm system in baseball. But 2, I guess a few months now since I've been hired, and the few months that we're going through negotiations and everything, I've gotten a really good look at the people behind all of that. The people that I'll be around on a daily basis in the front office and on our broadcast crew. And there's just so many good people with the organization, with the new ownership group all the way down. Starting on a daily basis with Stan Kasten, the CEO, and all the executive vice presidents under him, and the baseball ops people led by Andrew Friedman. Just a lot of normal people that my family and I are really looking forward to, getting to know more and be next to on a daily basis out there. So that makes it comforting too when you're thinking about moving across the country, for sure.
If I may be so bold as to speculate, you're moving into an organization that tends to take care of its people. You're moving into a place that's got a fan base that's as loyal as anywhere. And you're moving to a place where, they're pretty good at fielding a contender, and they feel a lot of pressure to field a contender every single year. So I hope you're there for a long, long time.
I hope so too. One of the first conversations I had with them back in, so it would have been February of 2015, so a little more than a year ago now. First time I'd sat down with some of the hiring people, and at that point realized how sincere and significant their interest was. I remember them saying, I don't know if you know this, but people in this position typically stick around for quite a while.
Yeah.
So a pretty good track record on people in the Dodgers booth having some decent longevity. If I get half of the 67 years Vin has done, then I'll have done something that I'm really, really proud of.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You just said 67 years?
67 years.
Can you imagine any career in anything?
Oh, man.
Like you said, half of 67 years at anything. It's
I know.
Amazing.
Vin went into the Baseball Hall of Fame 5 years before I was born.
Isn't that incredible? What an opportunity to get to share that experience with him this year and all that staff. It's good for you to have that. I have a question about Vin is so, he treats it not so much like a conversation between like you and Nomar and you and Oral, but more like a conversation between himself and the fans of LA. There's all kinds of stories of him specifically talking to someone's wife who's, hey, your husband's about to debut in Major League. Someone get a hold of her and let her know to tune in, that kind of thing. Do you try to bring in some of those elements on purpose, or do you just 100% stay, this is the Joe Davis style and I'm going to do this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think anybody in this business would be crazy not to listen to Vin and take some things from Vin, the greatest ever to do this. But his best advice he would tell you that he ever got from Red Barber, and there's that 1 degree of separation again that's mind-blowing to me. But he says that the best advice Red Barber ever gave him was that you bring to the booth one thing that nobody else can, no matter who you are, and that is you. So you have to be careful about, in Red's words, watering your wine by taking too many things from too many people, and then you lose the most valuable thing, and that is yourself. And I think especially in this situation where I'm inevitably going to be compared to Vin. I understand that. The biggest mistake I could make would be to in any way try to be Vin, because it's just not going to be genuine. What makes Vin so incredible, what's allowed Vin to be so special for 67 years, is that he is so genuine. And that's why people love him. People love listening to that voice every single night because they know it's really him. So I have to just try to be me and do the game the way that I know how to do it. And sure, part of the way I call a game is from things that I learned from listening to Vin. As I think anybody in this business would tell you, there's stuff to be learned from the way Vin does it. But bottom line, I've got to try to be me and not look to do things just because I think people want to continue to hear Vin's influence in the broadcasts.
Tell us about the time when Vin called you.
Yeah, so it was the night before the Dodgers announced that I'd been hired. I got a call on my cell phone from a number I didn't recognize. I was out grilling burgers, and my wife and I were excited that there's going to be this great news the next day, and it would be a really exciting day. Didn't recognize the number, so I said, if it's important, I'll leave a message. So I let it go to voicemail. They didn't leave a message. A couple hours later, same thing. Like, geez, give it a rest, whoever you are. This time a voicemail pops up. I hit play on it. Hi, Joe, it's Vin Scully.
There's one you say forever.
Big time, Vin Scully.
My wife turns around and looks at me and said, "What? Is it Vin?" So she knew just based on my reaction that it was. And Vin started the voicemail by saying, "I tried you earlier in the day, so I guess I begin the year 0 for 2. But we wound up hooking up a few minutes later, and thank goodness. I told my wife after that, I wish there was a way to take this voicemail and put it in a hard case and put it up on a shelf somewhere where I could protect it forever, because it's one of the most special things that I have. So in a way, it wound up being okay that I ignored it, because I got that voicemail to remember that went by. So I tell my wife this, that I wish there was a way, not really thinking too much about it, to save it more than just as a file on my computer and a file on my phone. For my birthday, she gets me this teddy bear with a Dodger jersey on it. And I was like, oh, cool, a Dodger teddy bear. And she's like, Joe, I didn't get you a teddy bear for your birthday. Squeeze it. And so I squeezed the bear, and it plays the voicemail. It plays Vin's voicemail when you squeeze the bear.
That's terrific. Yeah. Kudos to your wife, man. What a thoughtful gift.
Huh?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Man, this has been a terrific show.
Of course, guys. Glad to come on. I appreciate you having me.
What can fans do to get a hold of you? Do you have your Twitter handle and all that stuff dialed in for the start of the season?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way. That's Joe_Davis. And I'll try to be pretty active on there and reply to as many people as I can. So enjoy interacting on there.
So at Joe_Davis. You got at Joe_Davis. Boy, you must have been an early adopter.
You know what? There was somebody who had, so I had Joe Davis Fox, and, you know, I'm staying with Fox and doing all those games still, but I figured it should be more neutral than that, since I'm, you know, employed by the Dodgers now as well. And there was somebody who had at Joe Davis, just, you know, the name like that tweets every day. So there's no way they were going to give it up. But Joe_Davis hadn't tweeted in like 5 years. So I asked one of the great people at Fox that helps me with a lot of stuff. I said, can you look into this and see if there's a way that, you know, Twitter will shut this account down? They haven't used it in 5 years, and that handle's just sitting there. I'd love to have it. And she said, I'll look into it. And about 2 hours later, I got an email or I think she texted me a screenshot and said, look, you're Joe_Davis now. So Twitter quickly took it from the person that hadn't used it in 5 years and let me have it.
Wow. Talk about making it happen in the office, too.
Yeah.
I know.
Hey, let me throw this out at you, too. We'd love to have you on anytime. We'd love to come in and do a face-to-face, because those are always fun. But more importantly, I mean, you don't know San Francisco like John and I know it for eating. So you ever want to, after the game or before a game, you ever want to get a meal, let us know, man. We'll take you out, and we'll take you some of the best places, because the best places in San Francisco are all over the place.
I'm a big food guy.
Yeah.
Where do I go to for breakfast next week?
You're going to breakfast in San Francisco? Let's see. Oh, there's a lot of great places for breakfast in San Francisco, but I'm thinking right close to the ballpark.
Doesn't have to be close to the ballpark necessarily, but somebody told me Mama's, but I hear
that's exactly what I was going to say. Mama's right on Washington Square. There's if you go to Mama's, though, there's always a line.
That's what I heard. So no matter when.
You have to send somebody to Mama's. Easiest place, though, I like the breakfast buffet at Knuckles on the Embarcadero. It's it's a nice joint. I think it's the Marriott, the Embarcadero Marriott, and Knuckles is the sports bar downstairs, and they have a great breakfast buffet there.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks a lot, man. We really appreciate you, Joe.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Great to talk to you.
Good luck this season and beyond, and hopefully we'll talk to you real soon when you come to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Hope so. Look forward to it.
We'll be listening. John, are you going to say it again?
No, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to be sincere about it, God damn it. Go Dodgers.
Yes.
How'd that feel?
It felt really, really good. Thank you. Joe Davis, everybody.